Walk into any Tesco, Sainsbury's, or Asda and try to buy butter, real butter, just cream and salt. You will find it eventually on the bottom shelf, in a plain wrapper, shoved behind a wall of bright yellow tubs screaming words like butterlicious, buttersoft, and original. Those tubs are not butter. They have never been butter. They are industrial emulsions of seed oils, water, emulsifiers, and flavoring, engineered in a laboratory to taste close enough to butter that your brain does not file a complaint. But the supermarkets do not put them in the margarine aisle where they belong. They put them in the butter section on the eye-level shelf in packaging deliberately designed to make you think you are buying the real thing. And if you have been spreading one of these imposter products on your toast every morning, nobody told you when the switch happened, nobody sent a letter, nobody changed the aisle sign. They just quietly moved the fake stuff into the premium position and buried the real butter below your knees. This is not a story about personal preference. This is an investigation into how the British dairy shelf was captured by a handful of multinational corporations selling you chemistry experiments at butter prices. To understand the scam, you have to understand why they want you to stop buying real butter in the first place. The answer is margin. A block of real butter requires one ingredient, cream. Cream comes from cows. Cows eat grass. Grass needs land. Land costs money. The entire supply chain is physical, biological, and expensive. A kilogram of British butter requires roughly 22 liters of whole milk. That milk has to be collected, transported, pasteurized, churned, and packaged under strict cold chain conditions. The profit margin on a block of real butter for a manufacturer is thin, painfully thin. Now compare that to a spreadable blend. The primary ingredient is not cream, it is rapeseed oil, sunflower oil, or palm oil. These are some of the cheapest fats on the planet. They are extracted in bulk from industrial crops using chemical solvents, refined at scale, and shipped across the world in tanker quantities for a fraction of the cost of dairy fat. A manufacturer can produce a tub of blended spread for roughly 40% less than the equivalent weight of real butter, but they do not sell it for 40% less. They price it within pennies of real butter, sometimes higher. That gap between the production cost and the shelf price is the reason every supermarket in Britain is quietly steering you away from the block and toward the tub. They are not selling you a better product. They are selling you a cheaper product at a premium price and calling it innovation. The first weapon they use is naming. European food regulation says you cannot call something butter unless it contains at least 80% milk fat. The industry knows this, so they dance on the edge. They call their products buttery spread, or best for baking, or spreadable with real butter. That last one is the masterpiece. Spreadable with real butter. It contains butter, technically. Somewhere between 15 and 40% of the blend is actual butter. The rest is rapeseed oil and water. But the word butter appears on the front of the tub in large gold lettering, and the word rapeseed oil does not appear on the front at all. It is tucked into the ingredients list on the back in a font size that would challenge a jeweler with a magnifying glass. They are legally compliant. The word spreadable tells the regulator this is not pure butter. But the visual language of the packaging, the gold foil, the pastoral farmhouse imagery, the close-up photograph of a creamy curl melting on warm toast tells your brain that it is. They are speaking two languages simultaneously, one for the regulator and one for you. And the two messages are completely different. The second weapon is shelf placement. Supermarkets charge manufacturers for premium shelf position. This is called a slotting fee. The eye-level shelf in a British supermarket is the most expensive real estate in retail. Manufacturers pay thousands of pounds per product per store to occupy that position. The spreadable blends, because they carry higher profit margins, can afford to pay those fees. Real butter, with its thin margins, cannot compete, so it migrates downward, bottom shelf, behind the taller tubs, next to the own brand lard that nobody touches. A shopper walking through the dairy aisle at normal pace, scanning at eye level, will see 6 or 7 spreadable blends before they see a single block of real butter. The architecture of the shelf is doing the selling. You think you are making a choice. You are making the choice they paid to give you. The third weapon is the health narrative, and this is where the story turns dark. For 50 years, the British public was told that saturated fat was the enemy. Butter, cream, eggs, red meat. The dietary establishment said these foods would clog your arteries and kill you. Margarine manufacturers seized this message and ran with it. They positioned their seed oil blends as the heart-healthy alternative. They put heart logos on the packaging. They funded studies. They paid for advertising campaigns that showed families living longer, happier lives because they switched from butter to margarine. And for decades, the public believed it. Butter consumption in Britain collapsed. Margarine sales exploded. The spreadable blend became the default British breakfast fat. But here is what happened next. The original science was wrong, or at best, it was catastrophically incomplete. Researchers have since published major analyses re-examining decades of dietary data. The conclusions were damning. Replacing saturated fat with polyunsaturated seed oils did not reduce overall mortality. In some cases, it made outcomes worse. The diet heart hypothesis, the idea that eating butter causes heart disease, has been under serious scientific challenge for over a decade. But the supermarket shelf has not changed. The blends still sit at eye level. The packaging still whispers heart healthy. The butter is still on the bottom shelf. The science moved on. The profit model did not. The fourth weapon is the spreadability myth. This is the consumer-facing argument that holds the entire deception together. British kitchens are cold. Butter straight from the fridge is hard. You cannot spread a cold block of butter on soft bread without tearing it apart. Every British person has experienced this frustration. The industry identified this pain point and built an entire product category around it. Spreadable butter. The solution sounds elegant. They blend real butter with vegetable oil so it stays soft at refrigerator temperature. Problem solved. But think about what they actually did. They took a product that has one ingredient, cream, and they added the cheapest industrial fat on the market to it, rapeseed oil, then charged you the same price or more. They identified a storage problem that could be solved by leaving the butter on the counter for 10 minutes and turned it into a permanent reformulation that replaced a significant percentage of an ancient whole food with a refined industrial oil. Your grandmother did not need spreadable butter. She left the butter dish on the kitchen table. It was soft by breakfast. The industry did not solve a problem. They manufactured a problem, sold you the solution, and pocketed the margin on the cheaper ingredients. Now here is where the ingredient story gets uncomfortable. Let us talk about what is actually inside these blends. Pick up any major spreadable product in a British supermarket and read the full ingredients list. You will find rapeseed oil, water, buttermilk, salt, emulsifiers such as mono and diglycerides of fatty acids, flavoring, color, and sometimes lactic acid added to simulate the tang of real cultured butter. That emulsifier, mono and diglycerides of fatty acids, is an industrial additive produced by chemically splitting fats with glycerol at high temperatures. It is the glue that forces oil and water to stay mixed in the tub instead of separating into the greasy, watery mess it naturally wants to become. Without that emulsifier, the product would look like what it actually is, a puddle of oil floating on top of cloudy water. The emulsifier is not there for your benefit. It is there to maintain the visual illusion that this product is something it is not. And then there is the flavoring, natural flavoring. That term covers an enormous range of compounds extracted and processed from biological sources in ways that bear no resemblance to anything your grandmother would recognize as natural. The flavoring exists because rapeseed oil and water do not taste like butter. They taste like nothing. Or worse, they taste faintly of paint. The flavoring is a chemical mask designed to make the product taste enough like butter that you do not switch back to the real thing. They are not enhancing a flavor. They are fabricating one from scratch. The European market tells a different story. In France, butter consumption never collapsed the way it did in Britain. The French ignored the anti-saturated fat panic. They kept buying blocks of real butter, churned from cream, wrapped in paper. French supermarkets stock dozens of butter varieties at eye level because the demand never disappeared. French spreadable blends exist, but they occupy a small, clearly labeled section that nobody confuses with real butter. The French relationship with butter is cultural, and that culture acted as a shield against the industrial substitution that swept through Britain. It is not that French consumers are smarter. It is that they never accepted the premise that butter was the enemy. And because they kept buying it, the manufacturers never had the leverage to replace it. Here is the verdict. Real butter is one ingredient, cream. It has been made the same way for thousands of years. It is a whole food. It contains fat-soluble vitamins. It has a flavor that exists because of biology, not because a laboratory reverse engineered it. The spreadable blends sitting at eye level in every British supermarket are manufactured products designed to maximize profit margins by replacing expensive dairy fat with cheap industrial oil, and then using emulsifiers, flavoring, and packaging design to disguise the substitution. Nobody told you when the switch happened because the switch was never announced. It was executed one shelf placement at a time, one gold-foiled tub at a time, one heart-healthy marketing campaign at a time, until an entire generation grew up thinking that butter comes in a plastic tub and spreads straight from the fridge. It does not. That is not butter. That is a business model. Next time you are in the dairy aisle, bend down. Look at the bottom shelf. Pick up the block wrapped in foil or paper with one ingredient on the back. That is butter. Everything else is marketing. If you want to know which other kitchen staples have been quietly replaced with cheaper imitations, watch the next one.